Republican Party that will not bend until they break this economy or get their own way. I have been for deficit reduction. I have voted for fair approaches to deficit reduction. I know fairness, but this deal, Mr. President, is not fair, and I will not support it. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor to serve the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Mr. President.
The Senator from Connecticut.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further proceedings under the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
I thank the Chair. Mr. President, I rise to speak on the proposed debt crisis agreement. The first thing I'd like to do is to express my appreciation, I think I'd actually say empathy, to the President, Vice President, the bipartisan leadership of both houses of Congress that have had to deal with this enormously significant and difficult problem for our federal government, because the obvious fact is that we have worked our way into a very deep hole of debt. And when I say we, I mean we, all of us, succeeding presidents of different parties, members of both parties, in both houses of Congress. There's a tendency when you've got a problem like this to want to point and blame everybody else. The truth is we're all responsible, and we're only going to get out of this hole and get the American government and the American people out of this hole if we work together to solve the problems, just as we have together caused these problems. I saw some numbers recently. I think I've got them right. I know I got them almost right, that express very simply what happened over the last decade. In fiscal year 2001, the last year of the Clinton administration, the federal government tax revenues were at about 19.6% of the gross domestic product. Spending, federal government spending in that year was about a point lower, 18.5 or 6% of the gross domestic product. So you're raising about 1% more of the GDP than you're spending. You got a surplus. What is it now? It's startling how the changes occurred. Spending is up close to 25% of the gross domestic product, and revenues are down to about 15%. Now you've got a gap of 10% about spending as a percentage of GDP over revenue, and we've got this enormous deficit in debt, $14 trillion. If you'd said to me when I came to Congress in 1989 that our government would one day have a debt of over $14 trillion, I would have said impossible. But here we are, and it's growing at $1 trillion a year and more. And that's the problem we've got. And when you think about those percentages I cited, speaking very simplistically, the way we're going to get out of the hole we're in is by cutting spending and raising revenues. Now, we'd like to do that in a way that also gets us back to economic growth. That's the critical third factor. If we're growing economically, the revenue system we have will raise more money and help us to close this gap. But doing these two things that are critical to solving the national crisis we have, which is to raise revenue and cut spending, are difficult politically. Very hard politically. It's not what what a lot of politicians think our constituents want us to do. But I think today the American people are so anxious about the national debt, so anxious about the economy, and so frustrated and angry with members of Congress that they'd like us to do what's counterintuitive, which doesn't seem like traditional politics, which is actually to do together what will solve the problem. Stop the partisan politics, solve the problem. They know we've got to cut some spending and we've got to raise some revenues, and they want us to do it fairly. That's the difficult dilemma that the White House and the bipartisan congressional leadership faced in dealing with this problem, and it results in the agreement. Now, I thank the leaders in the White House for the agreement, because it does do some significant things. Number one, it avoids the unknown risk of a default for the first time in our history. Some people think it wouldn't be so bad. I don't want to play that game with our economy and our financial future. I think it would have hurt us. So it avoids that. The second is that it does begin to cut some spending and put some caps on. And the third is, and maybe this is the most hopeful, it creates a special joint committee of Congress to recommend further cuts in the so-called second tranche of cuts. But it doesn't do two other things. And as a result, this proposal before us now is unfair. And what doesn't it do? It seems to me that in reaching this agreement, each political party yielded to the other party's highest priority political and ideological interest. So this agreement does not deal with entitlement reform at all, including Medicare reform, which is a priority for Democrats, and it doesn't raise revenues, which is a priority for Republicans. So as a result, why do I say it's unfair? It's unfair because it sets before us a solution to the problem that only asks of the discretionary spending lines in our budget. What I mean to say here is that discretionary spending in fiscal year 2010 represented about 35% of all government spending. Mandatory spending, the so-called entitlements, was almost 60%. 35% discretionary, 60% mandatory. Interest payments were about 5.5%. So if you're taking the mandatory spending off of the table, and you're not going to add any revenues, then you're left with taking all the savings that this agreement proposes to achieve, almost $3 trillion, maybe at best $3 trillion. You're taking it all out of discretionary spending. And in doing that, you're going to end up having a devastating effect on our security, and I believe on our prosperity, and also on our future, on the capacity of our government to take care of those who are most vulnerable, and the capacity of our government to grow, to help the economy grow. And to better explain this, I just want to say very briefly, what's discretionary spending? Well, there's the defense side, which is the Department of Defense. In some cases in this agreement, it's described as security, and that would include Homeland Security and Veterans Administration. The non-defense discretionary includes most of what most people see as our government: education, health, administration of justice, energy, environment, agriculture, commerce, community and regional development, science, space, technology, research. All of those will suffer devastating cuts under this proposal because we've not been willing to deal with entitlements, particularly Medicare. Now, why do I cite Medicare? I believe in Medicare. I think it's a great program. But look, it's on the course to do two things. One, it's going to go bankrupt soon, according to the report of its own trustees, no later than 2024. But as soon as 4 or 5 years from now, the hospital part of Medicare is going to go bankrupt. It's not going to have enough money. Why? Because though people put in money through their payroll taxes into hospital insurance, the reality is that the average beneficiary of Medicare takes $3 or $4 out for every dollar put in. You can't do that and have it be sustained over the long haul. And over the next decade, approximately 20 million more Americans are going on to Medicare because of the baby boomer generation. So it's the single largest, fastest growing element of our federal budget. And it seems to me, again, I support Medicare. I voted against the Ryan budget. I don't want to privatize it, but you can't protect Medicare as it is and expect it to stay as it is. You're only going to save Medicare by changing it. And this budget doesn't touch that at all. I could say more about that, but that's enough for the moment. So the end result of all this is that of the approximately $1 trillion in the so-called first phase or tranche of savings cuts adopted by this plan, they're pretty much all from discretionary spending, defense and non-defense, Head Start, Pell Grants, education, and defense. The second phase is the part that bothers me and really worries me, I'd say. The proposal before us sets up a committee, 12 members of Congress, equal in terms of party allocation. They have the opportunity to deal with the problems that are left out of this and have this be a fairer proposal to get America back in balance, and that is to deal with the entitlements and deal with the revenues, tax reform, entitlement reform, whatever you want to call it. But will they? And if they don't, if the two parties' priority political and ideological interests are reflected in the committee and stop it from dealing with entitlements and revenues and then reflected on the floor, then there's an automatic mechanism for cutting an additional $1.2 trillion to $1.5 trillion. And that all comes out of discretionary spending, defense and non-defense. Now, some of my other colleagues have come to the floor to describe the impact on non-defense discretionary spending. Really, most of what we know is government, education, health care, environmental protection, transportation, et cetera, et cetera. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Homeland Security Committee, privileged to be chair. My priority in my service in the Senate has been our national security. And I'll tell you this, Mr. President, if that sequester ever went into effect, it would have a devastating impact on the ability of our men and women in uniform and their leaders to protect our security in what remains a dangerous world. The initial $1 trillion of cuts mandated in this proposal include $350 billion over the 10 years from defense, as I understand the numbers. President Obama had earlier directed the Department of Defense to cut $400 billion from their spending over the next decade. The Department of Defense is working on that. General Dempsey, Martin Dempsey, soon to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee, said that he was working on that. He thought he could accomplish it, but it wasn't going to be easy. He was asked, what would happen if you went beyond you were demanded to go beyond the $400 billion in cuts from defense over the next 10 years? And he said it would be extraordinarily difficult and involve very high risk to our national security. He's not against cuts in defense. I'm not against cuts in defense. But they got to be reasonable. Because in the end, the first responsibility of our national government is to protect our security. If we don't have security, we don't have anything else. We don't have freedom, we don't have prosperity, we don't have anything else. And the world is full of people who want to do us damage, who want to kill us, who want to bring down our civilization, who are involved in an ideological, some sense theological clash with us. And I'm just saying that if the Joint Committee, the Special Committee, cannot reach agreement, or it reaches agreement and Congress rejects its proposals, there will be an automatic cut in defense of an additional $500 to $600 billion over the next decade. Add that to the $350 already in the first phase mandated by this proposal. You've got $1 trillion in cuts. We're just not going to be protected as we have to be. It's as simple as that. And it's just unfair. And not only unfair, it's irresponsible. The fact is, well, Admiral Mullen was in Afghanistan over the weekend, and he had a conversation with some of our troops that got a lot of attention from the media. One of the soldiers got up and said, Admiral Mullen, we're following this debt debate in Congress. Can you promise us that we'll get paid regularly in the coming weeks? And Admiral Mullen quite honestly said, I don't know, because it wasn't clear whether we were going to come to an agreement and avoid a default. Well, I'll tell you, Mr. President, if this full package goes forward and the Joint Committee doesn't reach a different resultant recommendation. And $1 trillion of cuts are imposed on our national security defense department budget over the next 10 years. Whoever is chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff when this goes into effect, it'll be General Dempsey. He'll still be there. Fortunately, in January of 2013, when they're asked, will we get paid, I believe they're still going to say, I don't know. Some of you will. We may have to have a reduction in end strength in the force and number of people we have protecting our country. And if families of men and women in uniform for the U.S. ask if this total package of cuts goes into effect on defense, if their families of the military ask, are our loved ones in uniform going to be given the equipment to carry out the missions our country is asking of them in a way that maximizes their ability to succeed and protects them? I don't think anybody in the military can say yes. I couldn't say yes if that was the case. And so I'm disappointed here. I'll say one other thing, because we're also focused on jobs and the economy. The American military doesn't just protect our security and advance our ideals as it does and live by our ideals as it does, but it also has a tremendous positive impact on our economy. It's the American military that is the foundation of an international system of stability and security that has undergirded, that has been the precondition of the enormous economic growth that has happened in America and in a lot of other places in the world where hundreds of millions, probably billions of people have come out of poverty because they could rely on the safety of the sea lanes. They could rely on an order in the world in places like Asia and Europe and throughout the world. And if the American military is cut as much in the worst case as this proposal would cut it, it's the beginning of the end of America as a great international power. It's the beginning of the end of this system of international security that has undergirded our prosperity and so much of the prosperity in the world. Which other nation will assume the responsibility that we have? And we've benefited from it greatly. It is a statement that we are prepared to decline as a country. I come back and say again that to get us out of the fiscal hole we in the federal government have put this country into, everybody's going to have to give. Everybody's going to have to take cuts. And that includes defense. And there's a lot that could be cut out of defense. But there's also a lot that has to be changed in entitlement spending. And there are people who are getting away with tax loopholes that ought to be paying more in taxes. Everybody's got to contribute to solve this national crisis. And right now, this proposal is unfair because it asks contributions, cuts, sacrifice only from the recipients of discretionary spending, and that means while all of them should be paying, should be accepting cuts, they're being asked to take cuts that are unfair and counterproductive to our security, to our liberty, to our prosperity, to our morality as a country that's always taken care of people who couldn't take care of themselves. If these discretionary cuts go into effect, all that will be jeopardized. And so I've come to say this to my colleagues and to say, frankly, that I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on this. I understand that the proposal does prevent the default, and it does begin some process of cuts, and it has this committee which offers the most hope. But on the other hand, I see in front of me a mechanism set up here which I think, if it goes to its conclusion, will have not a net positive effect on our future if the committee's work is not good and accepted by Congress, but a net negative effect on America's future. I thank the chair, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the debt ceiling agreement that was reached last night. Over the past weeks, as I'm sure you have as well, I have heard from countless Minnesotans who want Congress to come together and reach a compromise on the debt ceiling. They didn't want their interest rates to rise, the value of the dollar to fall. They didn't want to see their retirement savings decimated because some in Washington believe that if they refuse to compromise, the resulting crisis will score them political points. I would like to share first with you some of the comments I received from Minnesotans throughout the state. Judy from Rochester, Minnesota, wrote this: "As a senior citizen, I understand where our country is compared to where it has been in the last 50 years or so, and I appreciate that sacrifices must be made." She said it is almost too far back to remember when people all pulled together, including Congress, to solve our issues. All the American people want is for you to represent us and make the best decisions for us, using your best judgment. Not prejudice or narrow viewpoint, but the best judgment. Paul from Rochester writes, "This is not the place for political stubbornness. It is a time for our elected officials to work together for the good of the United States." Lewis from Lakeville, Minnesota, writes this: "It's time for all you legislators to put your political affiliations aside and act as Americans and do what is right for all Americans, not just those who voted for you. We have a tremendous fiscal mess in this country, and we cannot waste time blaming each other. It was jointly created and must be jointly resolved." Bonnie from Osseo writes this: "Please put your ideologies aside and work in a collaborative effort to restructure our debt and to give the USA the opportunity to continue to prosper." Marla from St. Paul writes, "It is so frustrating to see the same game of political budgetary chicken playing out at the national level that happened at the state level in Minnesota." Tom and Mary from St. Paul write, "If you wanted to wake us up as citizens, you certainly have. We've been told that if you allow a default, that will cost our 401k. If ever a situation called for compromise," Tom and Mary wrote, "this is it. Raise the debt ceiling, and not just for 6 months. Reagan did it many times. But make real promises to deal with the debt, and then make the real fight where it belongs, over the next budget, not paying for our current obligations. Do you really want the Chinese to call in all our debts now? Have a phased, sane plan for bringing down the debt, not a forced false crisis. We're just hard-working Americans trying to go on with our lives. We never write these kinds of messages," they wrote. "This is scary, and we won't forget. Get it done, please." Jake from Minneapolis writes this: "In these upcoming days, as you are faced with difficult decisions, I implore you to work with your colleagues on both sides of the aisle to finalize the budgetary issues facing the United States at this time. As a husband who is supporting his wife as she attends a graduate program at the University of Minnesota, I am very concerned about what a default of United States loans would mean in regard to our finances. I am faithfully paying down student loans, and my wife and I will begin to pay down the student loans that she has incurred to pay for her education as she finishes her program in May. Paying off loans is never fun. It means cutting some things out of our budget, things that we like, such as going out to eat or movies, and compromising on difficult decisions. I hope that as decisions are made regarding the financial situations facing the United States, you will be a person who reaches across the aisle with a willingness to compromise and make difficult decisions." Marilyn from Buffalo, Minnesota writes, "As an independent voter, I am asking you to compromise on the budget issue. I am also asking you to use a balanced approach to reduce the budget deficit." Jay and Bonnie from Moorhead write this: "We would like to see a timely resolution to both the debt limit issue and deficit reduction by means of genuine negotiation resulting in a nonpartisan compromise which will keep our country financially solvent." Kim from Duluth: "I am writing to add my voice to the growing number of citizens worried about Washington's inability or perhaps unwillingness to get done the work you were elected to do. In my opinion, as a working-class American, I believe we all are expected to compromise in hopes that we can further the good work of our nation. I firmly believe all of America needs to be accountable to the economic disaster we have known was approaching these many long years. Get the job done. While no one in this chamber feels the agreement we will soon vote on is the perfect solution, Mr. President, we are in the bottom of the ninth inning. There are no extra innings here. The time has come to break through the partisan stalemate and pass something to provide certainty so we can move our country forward. That is why I plan on voting for this agreement, as it will ensure that our country does not default on our obligations, something that would have caused real pain for Minnesota families and businesses, while also providing a down payment on deficit reduction. Unfortunately, this debate has once again shown we need to change the way Congress conducts its own business. I come from county government, as you do, and I can tell you local governments don't operate this way. I've also represented businesses in the past. Minnesota is home to more Fortune 500 companies per capita than any other state. After fielding many calls over the past few weeks from business leaders from the biggest businesses in our state, like General Mills, to the smallest 1-, 2-, 3-person operations, I can tell you they don't run their businesses the way this Congress has treated this issue. And there is no doubt that this is not how families balance their budget. The sooner we can come together to agree on the next stage of this package, the better for our economy and the better for our country. I believe we should look at things like closing the loopholes for oil subsidies. I believe that we should look at things like the tax cuts on the wealthiest expiring at the end of 2012. These are things that should be in the mix as we move forward. It is time to put our political differences aside to work on an agenda that strengthens our economy, promotes fiscal responsibility, and increases global competitiveness. If we insist on using the debate as a vehicle for rhetoric only, we will not just be doing ourselves a disservice, we will be cheating our children and grandchildren out of knowing the America that we grew up in. We already know much of what will need to be done. Our failure to act has not been because we lack solutions, but because too often Congress has lacked the political will to get behind a consensus proposal. In the Senate, we've had this work going on. We've had bipartisan groups of senators, including the Gang of Six, working together to find a solution. We now need to take that work and make sure that that gets included in the consideration by this committee. It's time for us to work together to show that the American people what they need to hear. We need to show them that Washington isn't broken, that instead we're willing to put aside our partisan politics to do what we were elected to do what is right for America. Thank you, Mr. President. I would now like to turn to another issue that I hope we can resolve before the end of this week, and that is passing an FAA extension. Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the urgent need to pass a Federal Aviation Administration extension. The Federal Aviation Administration not only keeps our airways safe, but it also ensures that our air transportation runs effectively by overseeing grants for critical construction projects at our airports. As you know, Mr. President, Congress allowed the FAA's most recent extension to expire on July 22nd. This has resulted in a partial shutdown of the FAA. While the current partial shutdown of the FAA is not affecting the safety of our airways, it is still having detrimental effects on our country's air service. The lack of the extension means that the FAA does not have the authority to collect the fees and taxes that the aviation system needs to fund ongoing construction and improvement projects at our airport. This is approximately $200 million a week. Mr. President, these fees and taxes have nothing to do with the current debt issues we have been debating over the past few weeks. These fees and taxes go into a trust fund that is self-funded and separate from the budget that has been in the news. The trust fund pays for construction projects like a new terminal at the Duluth Airport in Minnesota. This new terminal is critical to the Duluth area. The terminal will allow more flights in and out of the airport, which is vital as more and more businesses are moving to Duluth. Unfortunately, the airport at this time is waiting for a $5.2 million grant that it has already been awarded from the FAA. For each day that the airport waits to receive its grant money, the risk gets higher that the airport will be forced to delay the terminal project for 1 year. Now, why is that, Mr. President? Why can't they go through constructing things in December and January in Duluth? It is pretty cold up in Duluth, Minnesota, and it is hard to do the construction, if not impossible, at that time. That is why it is so critically important that we get this money in Duluth immediately. Such a delay won't be just inconvenient. It will cause the cost of the project to significantly increase. Duluth is not the only airport suffering. Construction projects are being halted throughout the country. The Associated General Contractors estimate that 70,000 construction workers in related fields have been affected by this shutdown. Mr. President, I know there are political issues surrounding Congress's inability to pass an FAA extension. However, these issues have nothing to do with the construction projects like the Duluth Terminal, the 4,000 furloughed FAA employees, or the 70,000 construction workers just trying to make a living. I appreciate the bipartisan work that has gone on my Commerce Committee and in this chamber with Senator Rockefeller from West Virginia and Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson from Texas. I continue to support them in their efforts to get this FAA extension done. I urge my colleagues to pass the FAA extension. The lack of one is hurting our aviation system and our economy. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
President, we're not at quorum, Paul.
We are not.
Mr. President, first I ask unanimous consent